Welcome to the first ever episode of The Issue on the Table. I'm your host, Adia Sambakwi. Over here at TIotT, we take an issue plaguing society and manage to dissect it, give our heavily biased opinion, and let you deal with your own inadvertent guilt. Stick around if you like this, because I'm not even sure if I like this. Today's issue on the table is climate change. One of my many political stances that Grandma has used as grounds for why she doesn't call me anymore. According to NASA.gov, climate change refers to any long-term climate change in Earth's climate or in the climate of a region or city. This includes warming, cooling, and changes besides temperature. Climate change finds its dirty, despotic, disgusting, and disturbing roots at the end of the 18th century. English-American industrialist Samuel Slater made the innovative decision of establishing America's first cotton mill in Beverly, Massachusetts, representing us nicely. Although the mill operated on pure water, it served as a catalyst for reliance on fossil fuels unprecedented in history, because you're never dubbed Father of the American Revolution by Andrew Jackson for being a hippie. Carbon emission levels would continue to rise from then, aiding to wonky weather patterns, and yes, I'm an intelligent individual who is using the word wonky shamelessly in a sentence. Do not question my stuff. I know my stuff. Presented by the vital signs of NASA.gov, the world temperature has risen 1.7 degrees Fahrenheit. 9 of the 10 warmest years in history occurred after 2000, meaning at the same time carbon was heating our atmosphere at an alarming rate. The Offspring, it's pretty fly for a white guy, Kanye West's Gold Digger, Justin Timberlake's Sexy Back, Soulja Boy's Crank That Soulja Boy, Shakira's She-Wolf, Chris Brown's Deuces, Kendrick Lamar's Swimming Pools, Daft Punk's Get Lucky, and Iggy Azalea's Fancy were all songs of the year. I'm only willing to admit that I listened to 2 of those songs without regrets. Pretty fly for a white guy may or may not be one of them. We've lost 281 gigatons in Greenland glaciers, and Arctic ice has decreased by 13.3% each decade at minimum, giving the opportunity for every squeaky-voiced teenage boy to say, "Sorry guys, my mixtape too fire." No, kid, your hot bars are not lit enough to send the world into a near-apocalyptic crisis. Sit down. The global sea level was 2.6 inches higher than the 1993 average and affects 40% of people who reside alongside a coast. Oceans are actually acidifying as time goes on. When seawater absorbs carbon dioxide, chemical reactions cause pH levels to increase and reduces the saturation state of calcium carbonate materials. These materials are used to produce and maintain the shells of marine organisms. The oceans become undersaturated with these materials, which in turn commits shelled organism genocide on an oceanic scale. Imagine you were a sea urchin. You lived in a specific ocean, the specifically Pacific Ocean, just chilling while your entire digestive tract is being reworked by gastric pH levels. What a shame to die in the same place you've lived for all your life. On the other hand, photosynthetic algae and seagrasses may actually benefit from increased carbon dioxide levels. Jerks. Coastal regions such as Louisiana, Florida, and South Carolina are more likely to get hit by torrential storms, which frickin' sucks. Cities like Boston, New York City, Philadelphia, and Baltimore and their average summer temperatures, which typically hover around 90 degrees Fahrenheit, are expected to rise by 10 degrees by the year 2050, which frickin' sucks. And spring arrives 10 to 14 days earlier than it did 20 years ago, which, you guessed it, frickin' sucks. In an article published by Time magazine in 2014, poor neighborhoods chock full of low-income families will suffer much more than middle-class families, and no, it's not because they can't afford to purchase air conditioners. That's just facetious. Because my 6th birthday present was the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, live audience member. The materials that buildings in poor neighborhoods are constructed with do better at retaining heat than expelling. Just like a sea urchin dying in the same place they've lived for all their life. We cannot just adapt to climate change. That's anything but the case for laborers in these neighborhoods, subjected to triple-digit conditions and coming back to these full-size easy-bake ovens. To make matters worse, the sub-Saharan region of Africa has displaced 3.5 million people because of drought. That's the same amount of truck tires stolen just last week from Nigeria's multi-international conglomerate, Dangote. President of Dangote, Mr. Aliko Dangote, has expressed concern for the missing tires, and the coordinator of the National Patrol Unit has already stopped the salaries of 285 suspected truck drivers. On top of that, the coordinator appealed to the tire thieves by stating, quote, "Return them quietly, either to the company or to the nearest police station to avoid unpleasant consequences if caught." Dangote is putting exponentially more effort into fighting 3.5 million tires, and the Trump administration isn't stopping climate change. Most of these developing countries backhanded by climate change are anything but responsible for it. Newsweek tells us that the United States houses 5% of the world population, yet pollutes 17.3 tons of carbon dioxide. India is 18% and only contributes 1.4 tons to our demise. With all this information swirling around us, you'd surmise no one cares about global climate change. In the words of Donald himself, wrong. According to New York Times, 55% of Latinos were either very concerned or extremely concerned about climate change. Those who have ties to the Caribbean and Latin America notice that extreme weather hits those regions more frequently than us land dwellers. A 2011 Pew Research study shows that 59% of African Americans take global warming as a serious issue. 39% of the 6 million Americans who live in close proximity to a coal plant are people of color, according to the NAACP. The Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies found that African Americans are rushed to the ER for asthmatic difficulties at a rate of 330% more than whites. Both minorities agree that A, climate change matters to the country because it directly impacts them, and B, federal government is in the place to fix climate change, or at least America's generous contribution to climate change. Just recently, on January 26, representatives from the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists announced at the National Press Conference that they're moving the minute hand of the doomsday clock from 3 minutes to midnight to 2.5 minutes to midnight. That might be the best sentence I've ever said in my entire life. The doomsday clock, established in 1947, serves as a metaphor for how close the world is to nuclear and existential catastrophe. The closer the minute hand gets to midnight, the more liquor stores are reportedly running out of champagne bought by eager and exhausted people. I'm one of them. This is what David Titley, former Chief Operating Officer of National Oceanic and Atmospheric Admin, had to say about federal government and their concerns about climate change.
Should not be a partisan issue. The well-established physics of the Earth's carbon cycle is neither liberal nor conservative in character. The planet will continue to warm to ultimately dangerous levels so long as carbon dioxide continues to be pumped into the atmosphere, irrespective of political leadership. The current political situation in the United States is of particular concern. The Trump administration needs to state clearly and unequivocally that it accepts climate change caused by human activity as reality. No problem can be solved unless its existence is first recognized. There are no alternative facts here.
Can we just acknowledge there are no alternative facts here, and his ability to keep a straight face? Say what you want about C-SPAN, but that was absolutely legendary. The point I'm trying to make here is that the only thing that stands in the way of environmental change is the man. Well, not exactly the man. His demeanor is as childish as his hands, but that doesn't negate the fact that he has rightfully earned his place as POTUS. This University of Pennsylvania alumni, two-time divorcee, 3,500 lawsuit having, Twitter abusing, jingoistic president of the United States did not spend a year and a half campaigning to be disrespected by his own people. I am not going to disregard a figure like him. Not in this country, damn it. Half-baked man-child, Donald Trump has publicly denounced climate change on numerous occasions. Our research department spent around 2 hours digging through Trump's prolific Twitter account, finding his stance on climate change, and just kind of gave up after a sixth all-caps fake news tweet. His campaign website stated that he doesn't accept the consensus scientists have come to in the belief of climate change, which is honestly the first mistake there. Continuing with that, he wishes to dismantle the Paris Agreement 200 countries signed to reverse the negative effects. That's going to be fairly difficult to do, considering 1 out of 200 still makes for, say 199 other countries willing to stick with the agreement. Additionally, it'll take 3/4 of his term just to back out of the Paris Agreement. I can't exactly blame him ignoring the fact that 1997 was the first year in a 10-year temperature streak. He was busy hitting on Miss USA contestant Alicia Machado and narrating her weight journey as she was sitting next to him on a stationary bike. Just political things. In his first week of running our country, he has gotten rid of the climate change page of the White House website and even went as far as threatening to censor any climate change research before going to the public. This has sent environmentalists into the same panic a 15-year-old has when their mom asks what they're doing on their phone at 11 p.m. Playing words with friends. You really think we're trying to get flagged in our first episode? I like my raisins in the sun, not in a tanning bed. So how do we tackle climate change now that we know that it exists, it affects human beings, and those who are supposed to handle it are blatantly ignoring scientific evidence? There are basic things like unplugging your electronics when they're not in use, co-washing your clothes, planting trees. You can track your school's climate impact at EnergyStar.gov. Contact local environmental activist groups in your hometown, and if you can't find one, make one. Research solutions like carbon fee dividend, where an initial fee of $15 per ton of carbon dioxide is taxed on households, returned to households monthly, and rises $10 every year. This will then improve America's GDP, allows families to make their own decisions of climate change, spark innovation within the automobile industry, and other really dope things that aren't happening right now since this Congress has not passed this bill. And then there's us. Do what we're doing. Inform, 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 and inform. After being pelted with overwhelming evidence supporting climate change, we decided to inform the public, not because this was for a grade, but because you hear global warming so much and we feed off of your suffering. Make documentaries, conjure up rallies, plan expositions, craft surveys. My personal favorite, resist the Trump administration. He's attempting to silence those who defy him with evidence. His priorities as a leader have become so distorted that when the America he loves is asking for an ear to their problems, he responds with a muzzle over their mouths. We cannot afford to lose any more constitutional rights. This goes far beyond an environmental dilemma. It has infringed upon the well-being of humankind. It cannot go on. Only we can. I'm an environmentally aware Adiasama Kui, and this has been an environmentally aware issue on the table.
Latest